What up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith. Welcome to the Nerdy Narrative. Bless you, Bandit. This is a channel that I created in order to share with all of you about all of the things that I read in hopes of helping you find your next book. On today's episode of Fun, I'm going to quickly recap all of the things that I read during the month of September and what I thought about them. I don't do star ratings anymore. I don't like rating things with stars. I do it on Goodreads because I have to in order to leave a review, but I just really prefer to say I loved it, I liked it, it was okay, or it wasn't for me. Starting with the I liked it. Why the Last Man is a comic series by Brian K. Vaughan. I liked it. There were some issues that I really loved, but for the most part, they were all middle of the road for me. This comic series, I believe, came out around 2002. It is extremely dated in how it was written. There are just some things that are taboo and would not have been written the way that they were that really interfered with my enjoyment. And just being honest, some of the things that were there, even if I read it in 2002, would have still jarred me out of my reading experience. I have heard the show smooth that over, so I might give the show a shot. We'll see. But as far as middle of the road, that's the only literature I read that I found middle of the road. First up under I loved is a collection of horror stories called The Hand That Pulls You Under by James Flynn. These stories were wonderful. They were horror, but some had other elements such as science fiction that I really enjoyed. It just had some good creepy vibes. We had urban legends. We had one that was very Stephen King-esque in that we had a Arthur protagonist. I really enjoyed the stories. I loved the author's writing style, his method of storytelling. I just found it fascinating. I loved that his stories took place all over the world. We didn't just see something that could have happened down the street. I loved it. There was one story in that one I did not like. I did not like it at all. I would say skip it if you're one that does not like erotic stuff. I don't like erotic stuff. I don't care for it when it is extremely graphic and it's just constant throughout. If it's just a small scene of the story, that's one thing. But when it is very prevalent and graphic and just I'm not down for it. Everything that I say on this channel, I say because it is my channel, is completely subjective to me as a reader. That is not something I'm trying to project on anybody else. Just understand that is strictly my personal preference and it doesn't reflect on the story or the author. Next up on the I loved. I finally read The Never Ending Story by Michael Ende. I've only ever seen the movie. I changed that in the month of September and read the story. I am so glad that I read this book. I'm glad that I own it. It belongs on my shelves. Upon reading it, I discovered why the movie did not have the second half. It's very dark, very adult. The movie was definitely for kids and it was very positive and inspiring. The second half of this book is not, definitely not. I still really enjoyed it. I will reread it again. I've seen the movie so many times that is just ingrained in me. I need more exposure to the second half and see if my view of the book as a whole changes. I'm just curious about that. Next up in the group of I loves, we have Red Country by Joe Abercrombie, the third and final standalone in the First Law world. I really thought this was going to be my favorite when I started it. There were so many threads dangled before me that I thought I was going to get to see woven together. Joe Abercrombie just loves to pull the wool over my eyes or dangle a carrot and then yank it back and take it on a totally different path. There were so many times that I was like, okay, this is gonna happen. Oh wait, no, this is gonna happen. No wait, we're back to this happening. And then it just changed again. So it definitely lowered my level of enjoyment of the story. And it seems that The Heroes stands victorious as my favorite standalone of the First Law world. Next up in I loves is Fireborn by Rosaria Munda, the first book in the Aurelian cycle. I love this book so much more than I thought I was going to. While it is YA, it has some very interesting, complex themes. Revolution, rebellion, And the fact that while we had this rebellion and this revolution that did bring about some positive changes for the people, it started out with good intentions. It's just not quite there yet. And it seems that we have another rebellion, another revolution possibly brewing. And of course there's dragons, which you can never go wrong with dragons. Honestly, you can't. We have a really interesting magic system that we really haven't even tapped into fully yet, or at least I don't believe we have. I'm very excited to read book 2 and see where this one is gonna go. My next I love is Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. This author totally redeemed himself for me. I'm so glad that I decided to keep reading his work, even though the first one I read by him I did not like, which was Final Girl Support Group. Didn't like it. We did not mesh very well at all. Horror Store was fantastic. As you can see, the book itself is just presented in the best way possible. It looks like an IKEA catalog. The chapters are just laid out that way. It has like furniture with weird names at the front. And as you progress through the book, those change to other types of furniture and not the kind you enjoy sitting on or being in. It's just a fantastic story. Our characters are just really likable and you relate to them. Anybody who has ever worked in retail can relate to these characters. They're coming into the store every morning and there has been vandalism occurring and they're not sure how it's happening. So the manager decides to keep a small group of people and they're going to start doing walkthroughs at different intervals throughout the night because they have some bigwigs coming to inspect the store the next day. And what happens in the night is just, what a fantastic story. It started out so comedic and fun and it just really took a turn. Guys, have you ever been in a department store when there's nobody else in there? How quiet everything is. Like when you turn the music off and you just hear the air conditioning and those large pipes above you just going. I mean, it's scary. Grady Hendrix just hit a home run with this one. And then the next one from my I Love pile is Dark Hilarity by Joseph Sale. This one was so good, but go into it thinking it is a horror story with fantasy elements. This is a tale of trauma, tragedy, and horror. You have your story for entertainment purposes, sure, but the themes and just how these characters are written is just top notch. That is the best part of this book, in my opinion, is just how Joseph Sale develops these characters as they go through these things that are just extremely realistic. It's one that's really complicated to try and explain. It is on Kindle Unlimited. I would say go download it if you have that subscription and read a couple of chapters and see how it hits you, because it grabbed me immediately and I read 100 pages in the first sitting. And then the final book in my I Love pile is Shade by Chad Nicholas. I do have a dedicated review for this one on the channel. I will link that up in the cards for you, so I won't take a whole lot of your time here talking about it. I'll just let you check out that review if you're interested, but I really loved it. No surprise. Chad Nicholas is just a master at writing a page turner. And finally, moving into the I loved stack. First up, we're going to go with the short story that I read by Kurt Vonnegut, which was D period, P period, which some lovely people let me know in the comments on one of my previous videos. That means displaced person. Oh, the story was just absolutely wonderful. I just don't think I'm ever going to give a Kurt Vonnegut story anything less than all the stars in the world. Loved it. I highly recommend getting his complete collection of stories and going through them because they're just, I mean, he just has an amazing writing style. I'm currently working through all of the short stories that are in the war section of that collection. And even though I have never been in war, I've never served, I don't know anything about what that truly feels like. Kurt Vonnegut is able to write these stories in a way that I am able to relate to them and feel the emotion behind what he is trying to come across with. Just cannot recommend him enough. Next out of the I loved pile is Arm of the Sphinx, Book 2 in the Books of Babel series by Josiah Bancroft. Man, y'all, Alan from the Library of Alexandria started this craze, and everybody has been agreeing. I am right there. This is a fantastic series. This is my favorite book of the series so far. It just started out winning. You cannot tell me you wouldn't want to read about pirates of a sky ship. Come on now. As you can guess by calling it the Books of Babel, there is a tower involved, and we are climbing the tower. That's what we did in book 1. We climbed several levels of the tower. Here, we didn't really get anywhere as far as up the tower, but wow, did we get some amazing information and character development with our band of characters. I am so excited to see where we're going to go next, because some of the reveals from what we learned about our characters, y'all, the next book has to be amazing. Next up on the I loved is I read the second novella in the Lineage of Christ collection by Francine Rivers, Unashamed, which is all about Rahab. Francine Rivers took the historical account of Rahab and she just fleshed it out. She added characters and dialogue just to lend the story a little more entertainment value and understanding, and I just love it. It is all about forgiveness. It just really, her writing gives me so much hope and inspiration for humanity. Loved it. Of course, in my stack of I loved is going to be The Wind Through the Keyhole by Stephen King, the final book for the Dark Tower series. I am now officially done with the series. To me, it felt like an extension of Wizard and Glass, which was my favorite in the series, so it's no surprise that I love this one. I just really loved going back and visiting my favorite beloved characters. Personally, even though this one is said to be book 4.5, I'm glad I saved it for the end. I also snuck in Dead Boy's Game and the Broken Vow by A. David Singh, which is the first book in his Magical Rome Universe series. I need book 2. You know I have a TBR, you know I stick to it, and you know I rarely leave room for extras. But the night that I finished book 1, if book 2 had been available, I would have immediately gone into it. This book was a fast-paced read. It was entertaining and enjoyable. I have zero complaints, except I wish it were longer. Yeah, you heard me. I wanted more. I love the story. I loved the characters. I love the budding magic system. It's very soft magic. Now that could change, because as the story progressed and as our characters learned about magic, about the magic that was there in the plants and animals and insects, it was so good, guys. My next I love book is Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. What a beautiful classic. It's a coming of age story, which usually I'm not the biggest fan of coming of age stories. This one I loved. This one was all about Macon Dead, a young man who learned the hard way about the value of a name or a nickname, and also the value in knowing your origin, where you came from, who your people were. As he grew up in his community, he would notice how people put value in a name and where you came from. Well, who is your people? Where do your people come from? What do your people do? Like, that's how they determined what kind of person you might be. And his story is all about exploring where he came from, where his parents' people came from, who they were. Oh, it was so good. So good. Absolutely loved it. Can't wait to read the next one by her. And then finally, my favorite horror story collection I have ever read. That's right, you heard me. Top notch, number 1, What One Wouldn't Do, a collection of stories that explore the theme of what one wouldn't do. What one wouldn't do for money, power, fame, family, to bring someone back that they lost. This is such a great collection. And you start out and you read the first story and you're like going, wow, okay, he started with the best one. That quality persists through every subsequent story. So anytime at this point somebody comes to me and was like, hey, I want to get into horror. What are some short stories that I could read? This is what I'm going to suggest. because it has all different kinds of what's classified as horror, different genres that are in here, different types of storytelling techniques. Ugh, it's so good. It's so good. I loved it. I am so glad that I read it. I will read it again. The stories are very thought-provoking and interesting and scary and spooky, suspenseful, haunted houses, just everything you could possibly want. And it's perfect for fall, for people who want to have some spooky reading, but maybe they don't want to read a whole scary book. They just want it in bite-sized chunks. This is it right here, guys. And that is it. That is everything that I read in the month of September. It's actually a lot. I'm quite surprised at how much I read. Now, granted, they're all kind of skinny compared to what I normally read, but I'm still pretty proud of all the books that I knocked out for the month. So looking back at September, my least favorite read would definitely be the comic series, Why the Last Man. That was my lowest rated, so that just makes sense. As far as my favorite read, now that is going to be more difficult to choose because I read in so many different genres that I don't feel it's fair to say, oh, I like this over this, and they're different genres. That's difficult. I'm going to have to go with Arm of the Sphinx. This one just really surprised me and took me on a journey. I loved it from chapter 1 all the way to the very end. I'm going to stand firm on Arm of the Sphinx. Not only did I love the story, I love the cover art, I love the flop. I mean, it's just a win-win all around. Guys, thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this wrap up. I hope you found something in here that sounded really good that you might want to pick up for yourself. You know you have to tell me if you pick up any of these and read them, what you think. You know I love to talk about some books. Guys, thank you so much for watching today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.